For the past 5 weeks, I've given all the 27 starters a new Paradox form. This means that I've also transformed your favorite starter, so sit back, relax, and enjoy my 27 Fakemon. Our first target is Chikorita. Paradox designs are very similar to the original pieces, so I used the tracing method in order to keep the main aesthetic the same. I decided to base this form off of a prehistoric plant, which I may have made up myself because I just can't find it online, but I do think we put in some elements that actually makes him look like a Paradox form. Take the teeth, the little petals, and maybe a little bit more of a mean look, for example. I'm especially in love with the way I rendered the eyes. For the colors I didn't change up much, the only big difference are the flowers on its body, that went from green to pink. Ravaging Blossom. This mysterious Pokemon is said to be a merge between an ancient form of plant life and a dinosaur. It may look like a Chikorita, but be warned, this Pokemon is way more powerful. I think I've done a pretty good job on this one. It's pretty similar to the original design, but it is still different enough to sell as a Paradox Pokemon. The teeth and the little petals actually make him look way more feral, which is sort of what a past form of Paradox Pokemon is. More teeth, longer hair, or any spikes. At first I didn't really like the future Paradox forms, but since I made this drawing, I've actually fallen in love with the idea. The future designs are mainly just a base design, but then with a black screen-like thing on their head, where the eyes look more like lights than actual eyes. They also replace certain features with a lava lamp kind of feel. At first I wasn't really a fan of the shinies for these guys, because they are just colorless. But since I put them on my own drawings, I actually get why they did that. From the moment you put in the shiny colors, it immediately sells as a robot, which is fantastic. Iron Hood. This Pokemon is said to be a weird organism with a relatively simple mechanism. The coding does appear to be incredibly advanced though. Nobody knows who created this creature, but it does still appear to love cuddles. The name Iron Hood? Fantastic. Thank you so much, Benjamin. I definitely think this could be sold as a futuristic form of Rowlet. The fact that its wings aren't attached to its body anymore, and that he has those light-like eyes, instantly sells him as a robot to me. If you're not convinced that he is a robot, just look at his shiny. I may have made a small mistake on this one. Instead of turning this Pokemon into a Paradox form, I sort of turned him into a convergent Pokemon. I do think this is one of the best designs I've made so far, but yeah, it's not the best Paradox Pokemon. I did still want to show him in this video because I just love him so much, and I really think you'd like him too. I turned Squirtle into an Ankylosaur? Something like that. Coming back to the point I said earlier, I know you do actually have to use the same colors as the regular Squirtle, so that's why he's totally different and sort of a convergent Pokemon, because we used the brown colors which looked way better, but we did turn the shiny into a shiny Squirtle, so I tried. Smashing Shell. The not so good Paradox Pokemon. This Pokemon is supposedly born from boulders when they hit Earth from the highest of mountains. Even though this Pokemon resembles Squirtle quite a lot, this Pokemon is actually way stronger. Like I said before, this isn't the best Paradox Pokemon, but you have to agree that it looks pretty sick. I especially like the way I rendered it with the scales. That really sells him as a dinosaur. This was another pretty easy design to convert into a future form, but it did take me some time to figure out how to make his eyes work. I eventually settled on dark screen-like circles on his face, and I think that worked out great. At some point I was testing if I could put the lava lamp kind of feel on his head as well, but I'm glad I didn't do that. For the colors we just changed the pale yellow for a dark grey color. I would have loved to give the shiny blue flames, because that's just the way you should make flames into a shiny color. But yeah, that's just not how Paradox Pokemon work. Iron Monkey. This Pokemon may look cute and friendly, but rumors have it that it's actually very mean. Only the toughest trainers can handle this Pokemon, and even they have struggles with the obedience of this little demon. It loves to bully other Pokemon, and it can do that very well with the huge amount of firepower it has. At one point I wasn't really sure if this drawing would come together, but I do think the end result is amazing. This really looks like a robotic Chimchar, and I'm really happy someone someone suggested to detach his head from its body. This made the design way more unique, and I love it. I decided to just tweak the original art and not even make a sketch. This sped up the process by a long time, and this might actually be my favorite design of all of them. But I'm probably biased because Mudkip is amazing. For the colors, I really didn't change much for this guy. The only thing I did was add a screen for his face where you have the light eyes again, and the other colors just basically stayed the same. Iron Fin. It is thought by some to be an underwater camera drone made by an alien race. We have not yet to confirm this rumor, but it does appear to come very close to you, and it loves to be petted. Might this be a strategy to spy on you, or is it just a friendly Pokemon? I have to say that if this Pokemon was real, I would instantly go for a shiny. And yeah, this Pokemon might actually be a good contender for one of my favorite Pokemon. For this design, I tried to make Trico a lot more pointier and sort of hairier as well. And I gave him claws and teeth to make him look more feral. One of my viewers suggested that we stuck his tongue out as well, which was a perfect idea. And it opened up the possibility to make him a poison type. Even though I really love making Paradox starters, I do find it annoying that I can't use other colors than the original art pieces. Some of these Pokemon would look so much better with a different color palette, but sadly to follow the Paradox rules, you actually have to use the same colors. At least for this piece we were able to add a little bit of purple to it, and we made the original colors just a tiny bit darker. Furious Gecko. Despite its small size, this Pokemon terrorized the jungle over 15 million years ago. We have no clue where it came from, but it appears to be a far back relative from Trico. Even though these species may look like each other, this variant is actually way more dangerous. One bite from this creature is powerful enough to take down an entire herd of Tauros. I am really happy with this design. I think it stays very close to a Trico, but adding the tongue added so much to the design. It really looks like an old version of Trico, which I'm very happy with. Making a future form isn't necessarily difficult. You don't really change a lot. You mostly keep the design the same and then just detach some of its body parts and add some rubber patches as well. My biggest struggle for this piece was to decide on which color would be the lava lamp kind of feel. I eventually settled on the yellow parts, but when I was done with the piece, I wasn't really happy with it. Luckily, when I was working on another future form, I discovered that Iron Hood actually had some shading in the lava lamp as well. This brought me back to all my future forms and I fixed them. Man, who would know that the future me would actually fix a future form? Iron Pengu. This red creature can be heard from miles away. It appears to make sonar sounds, somewhat similar to this. Noot noot. It also doesn't like to be taken care of. It's very difficult to bond with, since it won't listen to its trainer, even though it might be hard to control. It is very much sought after because of its incredible power. At first, when I finished this piece, I was not happy with it at all. Luckily, I did manage to fix it with the added highlights. I think it's a very cute design. And like I've said before, the shinies of Iron forms actually grew on me quite a lot. Look at that cute little robot penguin. For this drawing, we didn't change a lot. I did extend his eyebrow a bit, gave him a lot more spikes, made his tail a little bit bigger, and gave him bigger teeth. I really feel like I just described the Paradox Pokemon. I feel like some people aren't gonna agree with me on this one, but changing a lot for Paradox Pokemon isn't the way you should do it. Of course, it might be a better and cooler design if you did change a lot, but I am trying to stay close to the rules laid out by Pokemon itself. Even though we did have some very different Paradox Pokemon, mostly Walking Wake, I do feel like that's because he's a legendary. The rest of the past forms mostly just have bigger teeth, hair, or any other kind of element on their design. Razor Jaws. This Pokemon was an apex predator from 20 million years ago. There have been findings of their teeth that look surprisingly new. There seem to be quite a lot of sightings from very weird looking and aggressive Totodile. We believe this is a very ancient form of Totodile with a unique typing and a lot more strength. If you happen to encounter one of these, please make sure to run. I think only big Totodile fans will instantly notice all the differences. They might not look like much, but when you compare them side by side, there are actually big differences between the two. I think the shiny for this piece looks incredible as well, and I'm actually very happy with the end result. Some of these future designs are really easy to pull off. I'm talking about the black part on their faces. For this piece, not so much. I had to improvise which part would be the black around the eyes, and since Fennekin doesn't have one, I just decided to make a little mask-like thing. The rest of the design was actually pretty easy. I knew from the start I was going to pull out the ear thingies and give them the lava lamp kind of feel. Man, I really need a different word for that. The colors just stay the same on these things, but the shiny really makes it look better. Iron Fox, this unruly looking creature, keeps popping up more and more lately. It does appear to be friendly, but it can be very intimidating if he doesn't like you. Our tests so far show that their ears are capable of producing immense amount of heat. Combined with the psychic power from their eyes, they are a truly powerful foe. What I love about this design is that it's very simple, yet effective. It really does look like a robot, even though we didn't change much. This design took me quite a bit of fiddling to come up with something that looks nice. At the start I experimented with a big flower on his head, but that didn't look right to me. I eventually settled on a mane, and someone in my chat suggested to make it a grass electric type. I found this a very cool idea, and it gave me a new direction for this form. Electric types usually have a lot of sharply pointed features. I do feel like grass types are a bit more round shaped, so I want to combine these two. I think I've done a pretty good job on this sketch. For the colors I decided to go with a bit darker tint of green, to make him look a bit more experienced. Thundering Fangs. This creature is said to be able to eat an entire school of fish Pokemon in one sitting. It uses its powerful electric fangs to stun the school and can then easily devour them. The fur of this Pokemon may look like it's rough, but it's actually very soft. Thundering Fangs is a very loyal Pokemon and will defend its trainer without hesitation. I think this Pokemon might come close to a perfect Paradox design. I'm not necessarily saying that this is the best drawing ever, because it could definitely improve on some points, but the concept is something I could really see in the games. At first I thought this would be an incredibly easy transformation. I do have to say that I didn't necessarily struggle with the drawing itself, but the end result is definitely not what I had hoped for. I just thought it would look amazing whenever I added the screen onto his face, but the dark grey color just doesn't fit Scorbunny. Iron Hubs. This Pokemon can generate huge amounts of fire energy when running. Once it's fully charged, it can jump with so much strength, which makes him able to float for hours upon hours. We do believe that it has a way to use the energy to stay afloat, but we're not yet sure how they actually do it. They also seem to be kind and easy to befriend, so they aren't a threat, at least not yet. Like I said before, this is not my best piece, and I'm definitely not in love with it. I think that the effect gets ruined because of its white color. Luckily, our next piece might turn out to be your new favorite, so let's have a look at that one. I just knew Thirdwig had a lot of potential to be turned prehistoric. I did struggle a bit to find something I was happy with, especially the plan on his head was difficult to get right. I did eventually manage to get an incredible design by just adding small features like his teeth, tiny claws, pointier head, horns and a bigger shell. For the colors I did what I usually do for past forms. Keep them very similar, but just a bit darker. I am very proud of this piece, and I really think you guys will love him too. Thorny Twig. It is said that Thorny Twig was a carnivorous beast who speedily and stealthily attacked their prey. It blends in perfectly with nature whenever it lays still enough. It eventually started feeding on plants, which made running no longer necessary. As a result, it lost its speed, and its descendants are far slower than their ancestors once were. Even though this Pokemon might look cute, don't try to pet it. It's very dangerous because of its incredible bite force. Man, I love this design so much. It was definitely worth the wait. I also really like the shiny. I did change the color of its leaf, so it would actually differ a bit from its original shiny. This was another one where I was quite confident that I would be able to pull it off easily. Luckily, I was right this time. It didn't take me long to get a good grip of where I wanted to go with this piece. I really think that this is my second favorite future form I've made so far, even though I don't really like Popplio itself. Iron Flipper. This Pokemon is able to snort body fluids from its nose. It forms large bubbles which are extremely powerful. Iron Flipper does look similar to Popplio, but this form seems to have psychic powers as well. Luckily, it does appear to be friendly and a great tool for diving excursions. I can't believe I managed to make a form of Popplio I actually like. This was just a starter I never really bonded with. I do think I've done him justice with this form, and that the Popplio fans will probably agree with me on that. I really hope you've enjoyed the video so far, and if you do, consider subscribing. If we hit 2000 subscribers because of this video, I'll evolve every single one of them. This piece suffered the same issues Iron Hob struggled with. The dark colors just didn't fit him. Since Cyndaquil's body is closer to pure white than it is to black, I had to do something different for the flames on its back than usual as well. It looked awful without the yellow part, so I just threw the paradox rules out of the window and added it back into the flames. I am very happy with the way I shaded this piece, because that really saved the design, and I actually think it doesn't look that bad. Iron Quill. This Pokemon appears to be timid. It never attacks on its own and loves to stay curled up into a ball. When provoked, Iron Quill harbors tremendous firepower and can easily take down groups of Pokemon. Even though it might be timid, trainers are able to catch it when they approach it with enough caution and patience. I will say that this isn't my favorite future form I've made so far, but I do think I've shaded the piece in a very good way. This made me realize that the coloring is probably the only thing I don't love about the design. I would still definitely shiny hunt it though. And yeah, it isn't as bad as Iron Hobbs. For this piece I wanted to use the real life information that chickens are far down descendants from dinosaurs. I thought it would be cool to turn Torchic into a dinosaur looking creature with arms instead of those tiny wings. I worked on this piece for quite a long time, because I just didn't get the legs to work. I eventually stumbled on a cool design, where his legs are a bit more developed and muscular. I also gave him extended head feathers to make him look bigger than he actually is, so he's able to use intimidation as well. I did feel like the design wasn't finished yet. This is why I decided to do the silhouette test, which showed me that he needed a big tail in order to fill up the empty space on the right. The piece really came to life when I put in the colors, and the shading finished up the design perfectly. Just wait until you see the shiny. It looks fire. Feather Flare. This Pokemon seems to be a distant relative of Torchic. There do appear to be relatively new sightings of this Pokemon. Scientists are trying to figure out how that is possible, because it's tearing up the local ecosystems. This Pokemon is extremely aggressive and seems to hunt for fun. It appears that this Pokemon never had such easy prey before. Be warned, trainers, Feather Flare is not an easy catch, but if you try, make sure to catch him before he catches you. I am extremely happy with this piece, and boy would I shiny hunt this thing. I do want to mention that someone suggested that we should call this thing Prehistoric. I really love that name, but I had to follow the paradox rules for naming this creature, and I think Feather Flare is a pretty good name as well. For this piece I sort of knew where I wanted to go with the design, but getting all the details in was actually quite difficult. I wanted to base him off of a caveman, which I tried to pull off by replacing his stick with a bone and making him hairier. I also learned something new from the last episode, which I was able to use in this design as well. When you choose his typing before you finish the drawing, you can actually base some of his features on the design conventions of that typing. This is how I got the idea to add mud to his arms and mouth, because he would turn out to be a grass and ground type. Whacking Branch. This creature seems to live in groups up to 10 individuals. Though normally passive, they become very aggressive outside of their habitats. They will smack their opponents with the bones collected from their enemies. That smack generates enough force to smash a boulder into large pieces. They do seem to be fairly intelligent, seen by the interactions with our researchers, and because they create tools from natural materials. I do like this drawing, but it's not my favorite. I think it would have looked better with lighter colors, or maybe just colors based off of a caveman. That is why I gave him these darker colors, but I actually think humanoid colors would have looked better concept-wise. But yeah, it wouldn't really fit Grookey anymore. For the future forms we've done so far, we didn't really change much. We basically made certain features float and gave them a robotic makeover. I know that is sort of what a future form is through their conventions, but I wanted to see if I could change it up a bit. This is why I gave Snivy sights on his body, to give him a new way of fighting. This is at least different from the original design, and it might make him a bit more memorable. Ironcide is a very cunning and malicious Pokemon. It uses its energy sights to slice its enemies from behind. These sights can extend and deform in different ways, making it very difficult to get a safe attack in on him. The energy created by these sights appears to be extremely hot, as a large amount of trees with burnt cuts can be seen near their dens. A viewer of mine said he didn't really like this piece, but that was probably because I kept the same colors for almost the entire drawing process. I am glad I eventually changed the colors to fit the robotic theme more. This drawing was mostly just me trying to tweak his facial features to make him look more mature and fearless. The biggest struggle I had for this one was that I tried to make everything fit without the design being too cluttered. I think I've achieved that by placing one of his horns behind his head. This gave his left eye a bit more space and made the design a lot more clear. I also added a marking between his eyes, which looks very similar to the clones from a Mewtwo movie. Horned Fin. It is said that Horned Fin were aggressive hunters, using their horns to stab their prey with the force of a raging Tauros. However, more recent research denies this theory. They appear to be calm, and the only instances of them using their horns is for fighting other males for a mate. In the battles for mates, the loser is forced to leave the group. Despite being a fairly brave Pokemon, the Horned Fin that loses usually breaks into tears after the battle. I am pretty happy with this design. I think we've done a good job in switching his personality to make him look a lot less scared and whiny. I just thought that wouldn't really fit a Paradox Pokemon. I know this Pokemon will probably be the favorite of a lot of you guys. I knew from the start I wanted to add a different accent color to the design. I decided that using spikes would be a great fit for that. I eventually settled on a design which makes him look like a Dilophosaur. I also gave him bigger teeth and claws to add a bit more fighting power. For the colors I used a slightly darker orange, and of course the red accent colors, which I used in his eyes as well. For the final rendering I used my scale brush, and I think that finished up the design perfectly. Scorching Scales. We don't know much about this Pokemon, since it seems to be very rare. We do have noticed that the ones we were able to research are very active and easily angered. This makes them near impossible to capture. Their flames can reach up to 800 degrees Celsius, but when stressed it becomes even hotter and starts glowing blue. One has been seen roaming around the hotter areas of Area Zero, though it might be due to their own presence. I do think I've done Charmander justice with this piece, so hopefully I won't get hate on it. Well, let me spoil this design for you. It's fantastic. I decided to make his feet into little jetpacks, and I made his arms float next to his body as well. I did try to give him a mohawk for a second, but I'm glad I just went with his normal hair. The color stayed pretty much similar to regular Fuecoco, but just with a bit more grey colors in there. I also tried to give the eyes the pixel texture, and I love it. Iron Chili. This Pokemon possesses unique jet units that allow him to fly through the sky at extreme speeds. Iron Chili seems to be very cheerful and kind-hearted. They don't usually engage in a fight with other Pokemon and spend their time playing with balls of energy created by their hands. I am extremely happy how this piece turned out, and I wouldn't really know what to improve on this one. This is another one of those designs I just hope will get into the game. But yeah, that is probably never going to happen. We thought of a few different ideas for this piece. We tried giving him a big afro, but it didn't really fit him. We eventually settled on big ears, because the spikes on his head already look like the inner parts of ears. So why not give him just actual ears? We also made the green thing on his head to look like a helmet. This resulted in him looking a lot more fierce and protected. Someone in my chat suggested that we make his primary feature a poisonous tail, because because we already decided on his grass poison typing. This made the design look a lot more interesting, and it was just a perfect fit for this typing. Venomous Needle. The reason Venomous Needle covers itself with poison remains unknown to this day, as they weren't seen producing these toxins. We are suspecting that this Pokemon's fur and thick skin prevents poison getting into their bodies, though it's still up for debate. They seem to be pretty rude and like to start battles with Pokemon around their size. The results of these battles vary a lot. It does seem they act tougher than they actually are. This piece took me quite a while to get to a point I was happy with him. Now that I actually see it fully rendered out and see it shiny, I actually think it looks freaking sick. For this design we thought it would be a good idea to make him into a fire electric type. This gave us a perfect direction to base some of his features on. I think the fact that he looks like a charger and a lamp is really cool. I do have to say that I struggled quite a bit on the colors for this design, mainly because the original Tepic uses a dark brown color on its body, which makes the robotic grey colors not stand out as much. When I added the shading into this piece, the piece actually came together, but it could have been better. Iris Snout. This Pokemon is usually pretty drowsy and sleeps a lot, but it gets very active when exposed to electric charges. We theorized that Iris Snout can charge itself using its head protrusions to connect to charging stations. The light bulb on its tail shines brightly when this Pokemon is charged up, and it activates sensors on its snout. We assume that this Pokemon's snout could be a heat-seeking device, but there haven't been enough tests done to confirm this theory. In the end the design came together quite nicely, but I think it could have been better with a different color palette. I do have to say that it's a very good concept, and it fits the typing perfectly. This was another design where we decided this typing quite early in the drawing process. This is just a fantastic way to lay out a path to follow for a good Pokemon design. There might be an argument that it looks too similar to a regional variant, so I did try to add some teeth and horns as well. We also shifted to sharp and pointy edges instead of the bubble frill he has on his regular form. This made him look a lot less friendly, which definitely helps for the feral look we're going for. For the colors I had to make them a bit different in order to fit the poison type. We went for a dark bluish color for his body with the bright pink accent colors for his frill. Even though the colors are vastly different, I did manage to bring them back for its shiny. Spiky Bubbles. This Pokemon is very rebellious. It grabs sludge pieces from its neck collar and throws at everyone it sees. This poison is strong enough to eat through metal. They do seem to be immune to their own poison due to their diet consisting of poisonous plants. Spiky Bubbles don't get along particularly well, so they usually live alone. I absolutely adore this piece. I really love the way I've rendered it, and I would 100% be a member of my team. The shiny looks freaking sick, but I don't think it would have worked as his original colors. At first I didn't expect to make a drawing that would have looked as good as this one turned out. I didn't have to tweak much about this design, and the sketching process was over before I knew it. We just gave him a body patch, detached its arms from its body, and added the screen onto his face. We didn't change much for the colors, but adding the grey parts onto him instantly sold him as a robot. Iron Quack, the Paradox Pokemon. This Pokemon appears to be designed for sport and fashion. They can change the color of their head crests and flippers to convey their emotions. They're used for swimming competitions to see which Iron Quack can reach the goal the fastest and in the most beautiful way. Despite that, they're quite selfish and think highly of themselves. This makes them perform worse in some occasions. I wasn't really sure what his second typing should be, but I eventually settled on a water fairy type. I just felt like his head crest gives a bit of fairy type energy. I decided to combine Bulbasaur with Mega Venusaur. I did this because they've done the same thing for Roaring Moon, and I thought it would have been cool to do it for one of my own Fakemon as well. We started out by figuring out that we'd make him a grass rock type, so we'd have a few more guidelines to follow. I did have to be careful I didn't turn him into an Ivysaur looking Pokemon. I achieved this by keeping the same aesthetic a Bulbasaur has, and we just changed his patches into rocks, gave him longer teeth, and added a Venusaur plant onto his back. For the colors I would have loved to keep the same colors as regular Bulbasaur, but I just saw this Pokemon run around in the desert and I couldn't let that idea slide. Primordial Bloom. This Pokemon lives around trees in Area 0, where it hides hoping for bird Pokemon to land on its spikes, as it mostly likes to feed on birds. Primordial Bloom is very aggressive against other Pokemon, but they appear to be nice towards humans. This makes them quite easy to train and catch, but when you use this Pokemon in battle, he can lose control out of pure rage. It's known for using very sharp rocks to protect himself and to harm others. This piece took me the longest out of all of them to make. I spent a whopping 3.5 hours on this one. I do think it was worth my time, because I actually really like this piece. It was definitely fun to try something different by combining Mega Venusaur and Bulbasaur, but I'm glad I've only done it once. To keep my sanity in check, I challenged myself to make this under an hour. If I wasn't able to do so, I would have had to give 5 gifted memberships to my viewers and delete a shiny. Luckily, I went into full speed mode and I managed to pull it off. I think that this piece looks pretty cool, and I wouldn't really know what else to do with Oshawott. I do want to give you guys another quick tip, which is use rim lights on your pieces. A rim light gives a bit of lighting to shaded areas. It could really help to make your pieces pop. Iron Shell seems to be a futuristic form of Oshawott. It appears to be a friendly Pokemon who likes to stand up for his friends. If anyone attacked their friends, they will blast them away with their huge amounts of water and ice powers. They have been spotted more and more recently, and it appears that they've made Area 0 into a much safer place. I don't really know if I like this piece or not. Like, it does have some good futuristic features, but it doesn't strike me as an amazing Pokemon. But that might also be because I don't really like Oshawott either. If we're going to talk about this drawing, it was actually fairly easy to design. Litten itself felt a bit bland, so I just kept adding more details which fitted him perfectly. I'm talking about more hair, bigger teeth and claws, for example. I did struggle a lot on the drawing of the claws. It was tough to get the right trajectory on them, and they still aren't perfect, but I just couldn't bother anymore. I think my favorite part of the design has to be the eyebrows. They add so much character and expression to the design, which I'm very happy with. For the colors, I decided to give his body a slightly darker blue color and opted into a less orange type of red for the accents. I do still quickly want to mention that the shiny of this piece looks incredible as well. Flaming Fangs. This past ancestor of Litten is difficult to encounter as they patrol in groups around the dark parts of Area 0. The few people that have managed to come close to this Pokemon have not came out unscathed. It seems that Flaming Fangs are extremely aggressive, which is terrifying because they hunt in groups. The biggest Flaming Fangs appears to be the leader of this pack, as it commands the other members to gather most of the food because of its laziness. This is another design which has to be one of my favorite ones out of them all. This was an incredible challenge, and I hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye!